Thank you for joining us at Chevy Chase at Home for today. As you may know, Chevy Chase at Home engages our community in social and educational programming, both in person and virtually. We also provide volunteer services to older adults who need assistance, including rides, errands, and support, household assistance, and friendly visits. I have been a member for 3 years now and greatly enjoy the Monday bridge groups, the 3 mile walking groups on Friday when the weather is favorable, in my opinion, and theater visits and receptions with Chevy Chase at Home, making new friends all the time right in my 2 mile radius. Our speaker today, Gary Windam, is someone I suggested for our audience. I met Gary, so to speak, through my master naturalist program and learned he was speaking in Howard County. I followed up and asked him if he'd be interested in speaking with us, and he graciously agreed. Gary is very accomplished at many things, among them his career with NSA and the Department of Defense that you read about in his speaker's bio. Since he retired, and almost immediately after retiring, he began to fulfill his lifelong dream of hiking the entire Appalachian Trail, then at the age of 69. When I saw Gary's presentation, I was totally fascinated by all the work, organization, and planning that goes into it, and also the coordination necessary with his spouse, who was invaluable to his undertaking. He had the stamina to do this not only physically and mentally. I hope you enjoy this presentation, particularly the photo of Gary at 19 and his success photo at 69. As has been said, please put your questions into the chat, and I will collect them and present them to Gary when he starts to wind up at the 45-minute mark. Also, in the chat will be the link to the Chevy Chase at Home YouTube series, so you can catch this one again, share it with your friends, and catch ones that you've missed. Thank you. Gary?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. My claim to fame is simply that I went on a long hike, and it took me 6 months and several days to complete it. Lots of people have done this before. I'm not special, but I did want to relate to you my adventures in doing so and give you some idea of the planning and what all went into it, as Paula just mentioned. I will note that Jen has generously given me an hour to make this presentation, and that's really great. But that still means that I have to speak at 2,200 miles an hour if you do the math. And I'm an engineer, so I always do the math. But I'm not going to, at least I made Christian smile. I won't be able to see all of you guys. Normally, I give this presentation live. This is my first on Memorex. And so I'm a little nervous about making mistakes or doing something silly or foolish, but I know you guys will understand. And if anybody falls asleep, don't feel badly. Normally I go around and I poke people in the audience if they start to fall asleep, and that works pretty well. So anyway, let's get to the slide presentation. Again, I'm a little new at this. Here we go, PowerPoint share. And we're going to go with the slideshow here. And hopefully everybody can see that, Paula, and everybody is just looking okay.
Looks
So
fine.
I'm going to charge ahead.
Go ahead.
So when I was working at NSA, which I did for 42 years, and I gave a professional presentation, they told me that I needed to do 3 things. They said, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then when you're done, tell them what you told them. But with our short time frame that we have here, we don't have time for number 1 or number 3. So I'm just going to charge into this, and I want you to ignore this slide, which is my tell them number 1 what you're going to tell them. And it's just too complicated and takes too long. And believe me, I am not going to be hitting you up with long, detailed slides, and you're not going to be tested on this later. So let's get going. What the heck was I thinking when I decided to do this? Well, it's a long process, really. As Paula mentioned, it's the fulfillment of a dream, something that I grew up in Atlanta, I tell people that I was born in Atlanta, but I went to school in LA. That's Lower Alabama, for those of you that aren't from the Deep South. Sometimes I tell people I went to school at UCLA, which is the upper corner of Lower Alabama. Anyway, Auburn University. But anyway, my family always went to the Smoky Mountains for family vacations. I mean, it's just a couple-hour drive from Atlanta, and we always enjoyed it. And up at Newfound Gap, which is up at the ridge when you cross over the Smokies, on one of the few roads that actually goes through there. Uh, there's an Appalachian Trail cross there. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And they're like, well, it starts a few dozen miles south of here and it goes all the way to Maine. And people have actually walked that whole thing all at once. And I've always thought, man, that's just amazing. I might want to do that someday. Um, Also, who doesn't want an occasional personal challenge once in a while? We all like to be proud of ourselves, of the person that we've become, and we like to look back on things that we've done that we're pleased with. And so that was another reason I thought, well, I'm retired, I need a personal challenge, and this would be an awesome one. Um, Also, who doesn't like an adventure? As long as it's not like too adventurous, you know what I mean? Uh, it's one thing to hike up on the Appalachian Trail, and you're within a couple of dozen miles of a town at any given time. But like, I don't really want to go do this in the Arctic, on the ice or something. So another reason was to meet new and interesting people. When I went out on the trail, I deliberately sought out to meet people that are different from me. It's no fun going to meet old middle of the road conservative guys like me on the trail. I know what that's like. So I tried to meet as many new people as I could. Um, and also, perhaps more importantly, most of all, I was talking to my wife, who's the Carroll County administrator. She runs Carroll County on behalf of our 5 commissioners. Um, we, she says, sweetheart, she says, I'm going to retire one of these days. And what's on your bucket list? And I said, well, I've always thought about hiking the Appalachian Trail. And she says, well, sweetheart, you better get your butt in gear because you ain't getting any younger. And I'm going to retire and I don't want to do it myself. So that's how this thing all got started. Whether that makes sense or not, I'm not sure. But let's take a quick look at the Appalachian Trail by the numbers. Every year, the trail gets a little bit longer because maybe there's a mile or two on a road and they move it into the woods and they make it longer. Or there's a section of the trail that's getting worn out, so they make a detour that's longer. Every year, the trail tends to grow by 2, 3, 4, 5 miles. So when I hiked it, it was 2,193.7 miles. Why do I go to the 0.7 level of detail? Because I walked with son of a gun, okay? I think anybody that walks that far is going to count every 1/10 of a mile. I'd probably give it 100th of a mile, but that might be a little silly. Today, it's about 5 miles longer than that 3 years later. So the trail transverses parts of 14 states. I am going to take a moment to say Georgia has 79 miles and the trail is in Springer Mountain. That's one end of it. I say it starts there, but people in Maine say it starts at Mount Katahdin in Maine. It just has 2 ends. There's really no start and finish. But when you're born in Atlanta, the trail is always looking from Georgia up. So that's why I always say that the trail starts in Georgia. North Carolina has about 100 miles, Tennessee 70. Virginia is the longest state on the trail. It takes about 6 weeks to walk the Appalachian Trail in Virginia alone. You think you're never going to get done with it. West Virginia, I think they just crossed West Virginia to give them a name on the trail, but it's just 4 miles up by Harper's Ferry. Maryland has 41 miles. Some people like a real personal challenge and they try to hike all 41 miles in a day. I can't do that. It's something only young people are really up to doing. Pennsylvania has 229 miles, most of them rocky. New Jersey 72, New York 88, Connecticut 52, Massachusetts 90. Vermont, 150. That's a lot of miles. And New Hampshire, about the same. And Maine has dang near 300 miles. So when you get to the border of Maine and you've hiked 1,900 miles and you think, I'm done. No, you're not. You got another 3 weeks to go, another nearly 300 miles. So that's my first slide here. Let's talk about, we did the 14 states. It's marked with 165,000, more or less, white blazes. If you look on this tree here, that white piece of paint on that tree is called a trail blaze. The Appalachian Trail uses white blazes painted with a very special white reflective paint. So if you're stumbling along in the dark in the middle of the night trying to get to a decent campsite or your water, you can shine your little half-watt flashlight and get a little reflection off the trail now and again. It's the Appalachian Trail is the longest hiking only footpath in the world. It's no horses allowed, no bicycles allowed, no dirt bikes or bicycles of any kind. Excuse me. And it is also, we're proud to say, the largest and longest running volunteer conservation project in the world. The Appalachian Trail receives the benefit of 240,000 hours of volunteer service to help maintain the trail. If you think the federal government is paying for all of that, you're wrong. They don't have enough money to spend on the trail. It takes all these volunteers like these two young ladies, that's what it takes to keep it going. More on that later. The Appalachian Trail is a national park. The entire length of it, they have right-of-way on both sides of the trail. That right-of-way is jealously guarded and maintained. I have a friend who goes walking along the edges of the right-of-way, not on the trail, but on the border of the trail, and make sure that landowners adjacent are not encroaching on national park property. And by the way, the park, the trail was designed from the get-go to be close to people. It deliberately crosses roads and goes near towns so that it was envisioned that the local people would go up and hike on the trail for a few hours and enjoy their national park that way. It was never conceived that anybody would ever want to hike the entire thing at once. That just was not in their thinking process. So the year I hiked it, this is all approximate, but roughly 3,800 hikers tried to complete the entire trail in 2022. And in the end, the best the Appalachian Trail Consortium can estimate is that 1,366 people registered that they completed it. This is all honesty system. You tell them you did it and you mean it, and you sign a little affidavit that you did walk every mile of the trail, and they will put you in the record book as a, quote, 2,000 miler. That's because the trail wasn't even 2,000 miles in the beginning, but now it's well over it. So there are 3 ways to hike the trail. You can through hike it like I did, and those 1,366 other people did. Or you can do what's called a flip-flop, which means maybe you can start in Maine and hike to Harper's Ferry and then go down to Georgia and hike up to Harper's Ferry. And now you've done it, and they call that flip-flopping. There are reasons to do that, but we don't have time to talk about it. Y'all can invite me back if you want to talk about more details. I promise you I'm happy to come back anytime. We're just going to hit what we can hit in 45 minutes and then be able to answer your questions. And section hiking is another way to hike the trail. That's what they call it when you go do 2 weeks this summer, 2 weeks next winter, another week and a half next summer, and you piece it all together until you've done all 2,200 miles. And then you call up the ATC and you say, I did it. And they put you in the record book. Then what we say is hike your own hike. Hike it any darn way you want. Nobody's to tell you that you should through hike, you should flip flop, or you can't, or anything. That you should never stay in a hiker hotel, or you should, it's okay to always use your tent, to use the shelters. You can't tell anybody how to hike a hike. It's your own thing. Do it the way you like. So the altitude gain, the Appalachian Trail is all in the mountains. There's very few, there are very few flat spots. Uh, the altitude gain is, and loss, because it's all equal, is the equivalent of climbing the stairs in a 44-mile high building and then walking down again. And oh, don't forget the 35-pound load that you have to haul with you when you go up and down. So that's not a 44-story high building. That's a 44-mile high building, which would be getting on about halfway up to low Earth orbit. Another way to think of it is climbing Mount Everest from sea level, which nobody can do, to the summit and back down again 8 times. You have to prepare a lot to go on a hike like this. Physical part of it and a mental part of it. With the physical, you do a lot of aerobic training, jogging, a lot of walking, local hiking. My wife Bobby and I hiked the Appalachian Trail from northern Virginia to southern Pennsylvania, 7 or 8, 10 miles at a time. We just did that every weekend. We still do. Daily goals for those of you that have Apple Watches and use the exercise tracking. The red ring goal for me was 1,050 calories a day. And the green exercise ring was I try to do an hour a day, but of course I try to do even more. Mental preparation, succeeding in hiking a trail that's 2,200 miles long is a whole lot more than just physical. It's very grueling. If you think about exercising every day, they say you should exercise 30 minutes every day, maybe an hour if you're healthy enough. Think about exercising 10 hours in a day. It's like I say, grueling is hardly the word. Another thing that I did was I joined a Facebook group, and the title of it was AT Thru Hikers Class of 2022. And you could chat with people that were intending to hike the trail like I wanted to, make friends, and maybe start out on the same day with other people that you met online. I did that. I'm going to tell you a lot of stories in between the slides here because that's mostly what this is all about. I met a guy named Mark. He was from Texas. He was going to start on February 20th like I did. And we did. We met up in the hotel near the trail start. We started on the same day. 2 days later, Mark comes to me and he says, "Hey, Gary, when is this supposed to be fun?" And I look back at him, I'm like, "Mark, I'm sorry. I'm no expert, but I think this is as fun as it gets." I mean, it's just a lot of hard hiking, carrying a heavy load, and that's just the way it is. 3 or 4 days later, he went back to Texas. Like I say, it's a mental game. So I'll tell you another story about that when we get to a picture of the person that's involved in that story. I reviewed maps, I made plans. You see down here, this AT guide, that's tells you where the water holes are and where the hiker hostels, overnight places to stay. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The phone numbers for shuttle drivers. So when you get to a road crossing with the trail, you can text a shuttle driver and have them meet you there and take you into town to get a resupply from the grocery store. This is what my planning system looked like. I took a blank calendar in Microsoft Outlook and I printed it out. And then I went in and wrote this information. So what does it say? It's not as complicated as it looks. Up at the top of every day, that says what meals I need to have in my backpack, breakfast and lunch. Over here, the next day, I just needed lunch. Next day, lunch, and so forth. Down here, breakfast, lunch, and dinner I needed. The middle number here, the big number, is how many miles I was expecting to hike that day. The words here describe the location of where I intend to spend the night that day. If it's a hostel, then the name of the hostel, Gooder Grove Hostel. Didn't end up staying there, but that was the plan at the time. Another thing, right here on the bottom left corner of every square is how many feet of altitude gain. I was planning for that day. Right here is the mile number on the trail from 0 to 2,200 miles. See, it gets bigger, 128.8, 136.9, and so forth. What does this a 0 mean? It means I didn't plan to hike anywhere that day. We'd call them a 0 day. NOC means the Nantahala Outdoor Center, which is a place where you can spend the night and get some food and stay in a warm, dry room. And that was the plan. I didn't do it. So it really doesn't pay to plan your future days out much more than a few days. But this was what I was doing from home, and I thought it would be a good exercise. Here's a shelter. I've stayed in Cable Gap Shelter. I've stayed in Fontana Lodge, Molly's Ridge Shelter, and you get the idea. So I'm not going to talk a lot about equipment because I don't think a whole lot of you guys can benefit from that. But I'm happy to give an equipment talk. I can talk for an hour or more just on equipment. But I think that a lot of you are interested in exactly what kind of equipment it takes. You can't use camping equipment. Anything that somebody carries in a car and parks at the side of the road and unloads it and uses it for an overnight camp out, I can't use that on the trail because it's too heavy. All of that stuff, it's Coleman stoves and all of that, folding tables and all of that. That tents are too heavy. So what you see here, this blue tent is an ultralight. That's the key, ultralight tent. That tent weighs 1 pound and 3 ounces, a total of 1 pound and 3 ounces. If you look at the apex of the tent right here, up and down, I hope you can see my arrow. That's my hiking pole. I have 2 hiking poles. There's one there and one back over here. So the tent has no poles to hold it up because, hey, you already have hiking poles with you. It's designed from the get-go to use hiking poles to support itself so you don't have any extra weight from tent poles. This is not a freestanding tent. If you don't have the guy lines out, it'll fall down. This tent, the red tent in the back corner, that is a freestanding tent. You can actually pick that up and it'll stay in one piece. Okay, but moving along, hammocks is another way people stay overnight outside. This is the hammock here, but if you look, this hammock actually has like a quilt underneath it, because if you don't have a quilt under your hammock, you'll freeze to death in the cold weather. Notice you got to have a tarp over the top of it. Yep, that all adds up weight. So a hammock might seem like a great idea on rough ground and you can tie it between 2 trees. But if you don't have 2 trees, that's not so great. And it is just as heavy in every respect as carrying a tent. So now ultralight people like to say, well, I'll use a tarp. And here's a tarp. Notice no floor on this tarp. And notice the leaves and everything getting all up there next to you. Mosquitoes can come in there in the warm weather. That's roughing it, But that's the only way you can save any weight is by going to a tarp. And you notice this tarp, of course, is using the trekking poles on the front and the rear to keep it propped up. Okay. Another way to spend the night is in a trailside shelter. Shelters are 3-sided. They have a solid roof and 3 sides, left and right and back. And the front is open to the weather and the cold. This is a typical shelter. Sometimes they have a double deck. You'll see another one in the next picture. The capacities of these shelters are anywhere from 4 to maybe 8 like this one, or even as many as 16 in the larger shelters. There are about 250 shelters from Georgia to Maine, and they are about every 8 to 12 miles along the way, but that's a big variance. So if you like staying in shelters, sometimes the mileage you hike each day varies a lot because, that's where the next shelter is. Maybe there's a shelter every 12 miles and you want to hike 15 miles. So either you have to cut it a short day and do 12 or a really long day and do 24. So that's just all part of the planning process. Here's another picture of a shelter. This is in the Smoky Mountains. Notice how bundled up everybody is because it's friggin' cold. Okay, this is in early March, and temperatures are in the 30s and 40s all the time. That's a double decker. My little sleeping bag and spot is right over here, the orange and blue, Auburn University colors, of course. Custom-made sleeping bag made in the USA. Here's my buddy. Boots is his trail name, and he's already gone down for the night. Um, let's move on. That's what my spot looks like. You can see the Auburn bag and various ways to pack. This gray thing here is my inflatable but very warm insulated thermal mattress. This is a pillow for my full of down, helps me stay rested. The sleeping bag is good down to about 0 degrees if it's not windy. I see water handy close by, a bag full of electronics here and here, phones and so forth. You can ask questions about that later. This is a sleeping bag for side sleepers. You notice the zippers on the side. Uh, this is a quilt. That's what I used. Again, no time to go into all of that. Just wanted to show them to you. Food is a big deal on the trail, as you might have guessed. It is one of your heaviest items and weighs about 2 pounds for every day. And it's not practical to carry much less than 5 days worth of food. And you can't carry much more than 7 days worth of food because it just gets so bulky and so darn heavy. Nobody wants to carry more than a week's worth of food. You need, when you're hiking, about 5,000 calories a day. That's kind of, you got to think about that a minute. What's the US recommended number of calories per day for an average person? 2,000. Okay, but when you're exercising 8 to 10 hours a day, you need a lot of calories because you will lose weight way beyond what's safe and healthy. Snacks are imperative. You have to eat at least every 2 hours or so. And the whole thing, the food is a major expense. I mean, it costs a lot of money for this stuff. So if you look up here, the Mountain House, freeze-dried, those meals are about $10 a piece. They were my favorites. The tuna fish creations, you should check that out in your store. You can mix that with some couscous, like this in this picture here, and make a really nice tuna and pasta lunch on the trail without any effort. These things will rehydrate without any cooking. You just put it in a jar with the right amount of water, and at breakfast, and then at lunchtime, it's all set. People like Quaker instant oatmeal, especially if it has protein in it, but I think instant oatmeal tastes horrible. I just can't stand it. So I always made up had poor Bobby, my wife, make up little packets of rolled oats, and I would have to cook them in the morning. Every day, I kept what kept me cheered up was my looking forward to a famous Amos chocolate chip vending machine package that I always took one for every day, and I enjoy that for dessert after a meal every night. These Pro meal bars that you see in this picture have about 15 or 20 grams of protein in them. You got to eat at least one mid-morning and one mid-afternoon, again, to keep the calories going. And Snickers bars are the most popular candy bar on the trail, just by the way. And so Bobby and I made dehydrated dinners as a way to save money and give me a wholesome meal every day. And here's what our dining room table looked like for 6 months while Bobby was assembling the dinners and putting them in boxes and shipping them to me every 5 or 6 days. It's a whole lot of work. It saves money. I mean, look at this. These are, I think, leeks. You see this big bottle here? That's dried leeks. Um, yeah, and you have to spoon this stuff out, all these different vegetables and stuff. Big pain in the butt. Thank you, Bobby. Here's what a typical dehydrated, not freeze-dried like Mountain House, but a dehydrated meal. This is tuna and some kind of pasta or something. See the almonds in there. It was a very tasty repast, as they say. We tried dehydrating and making our own beef jerky at home. That was the beef jerky was a great success. Our attempts at dehydrating pineapple was not a good success. If you look at those chewy little fibrous little hunks there on that tray, trust me, that was not pleasant. So we just threw those away. Ground sirloin, when you dehydrate it, it takes forever, but it looks like this, and it makes a nice meal. But I had trouble on the trail with the mold getting into it. We just did not have a good keeper. So this was priority mail packages that Bobby would send me. If you send it priority mail and I get to the package at a post office in a nearby town, if I don't need the package, I can just forward it to someplace else farther down the trail. And because it's first class priority mail, it goes for free to another location. That's a great thing to do. Water is a big deal along the way. It has to be sanitized every ounce. Boiling isn't practical. So you can either use a filter, like it's in this man's left hand. The bag in his right hand is not a filter, it's just a water bag. And then you filter it into a drinking bottle. That's the most popular method of cleaning water on the trail. Here's what it looks like. You can use a gravity feed. This is the filter here. And there's the supply bottle. That's dirty water, can't drink it. This is clean water, you can. You can use chemical tablets to treat the water, but who wants to drink water that has chemicals in it for 6 months? You know, that's not pleasant. Or you can do what I did and use ultraviolet light. That's what this little device here is. You see the smiley face. It turns on a UVC light and it sanitizes the water. I sanitized a lot of water that way, drank it for 6 months, didn't have any problems at all. Your local city and county governments use UVC light to sanitize your drinking water. It's a great way to do it. So on my way, 20th of February, 3 years ago, 186 days to go. Here's that white blaze, the very first one for me on the trail, out of the thousands and thousands to go, and miles to go before I sleep, as Robert Frost had said so eloquently. So let's talk a minute about trail names. This is one of my favorite things, and a lot of people like this. When you hike the Appalachian Trail, over the course of time, people give you a trail nickname. Not everybody gets one. It has to be a name that someone gives you. You can't make up your own trail name. That's really not the spirit of the game. Sometimes you have to be patient like me, and you might go a month with no trail name, and you're just plain old Gary, you know? But that's okay. If you look at some of these pictures here, look at this guy right here. Can you see, have enough resolution to see what this young hiker is carrying? Normally I ask people to raise their hand and tell me what it is, but we don't have that here. I'll tell you, it's a leaf blower. Yes, this man brought a leaf blower for over 2,000 miles. He carried it. I don't know why. I asked him several times. You always run across the same people over the course of time. You know, I bumped into him a half dozen times, maybe a dozen times. I asked him, why the hell are you carrying a leaf blower? And he told me, and it just went in one ear and out the other. It didn't make any sense to me. To this day, I don't remember what he said. It just didn't fly. Over here, the next picture is Emily Desirat, the hiker I met and hiked with a few days on the trail. Her trail name is Hot Rod. That's because she had a steel rod down part of her back because of back trouble and surgery. So her nickname was Hot Rod. My good friend Boots over here, which he's accidentally displaying them for our benefit, they're made by Limmer, a company that's been in business for generations up in New Hampshire. They make Limmer boots. They're custom, handmade to your exact foot dimensions. And the waiting list for a Limmer pair of boots is about a year, year and a half. I went to the factory. It's up in North Conway, New Hampshire. But Boots fell over that log and he's like, Gary, get over here and take my picture before I get up. I want people to see this. So he was named Boots after his Limmer boots. This young lady, Legs, met her, stayed at a hostel. That's where we are in this picture. Her nickname is Legs, and I think you sort of get a small idea of why. This young lady was on the had a volleyball scholarship to her school. She was about 6 feet tall. She wears gym shorts in the milder weather, and I'm here to tell you she had legs from here to there. And one night I'm talking to her. I said, Annie, I said, I've got a trail name for you, but I'm a little shy about giving it to you. And she says, well, what is it? I said, it's legs. And she says, I kind of like that. And sure enough, she wasn't through hiking the trail that year, but a year later, she calls me up and she says, hey, Gary, she says, I'm hiking the whole trail at once this year. I'm through hiking like you, and I'm keeping the name Legs. So I was thrilled with that. You always have to be careful when you're hanging with the young ladies, an old guy like me. You don't want to be too friendly, otherwise they think you're that creepy guy. And that wasn't me, and I didn't want to give that impression. So, but Annie gave me her phone number and said, here, call me when you get to Mount Katahdin and let me know that you did it safely and successfully. This fellow next to her, flat pick, his name is Mark, real name, and he carried a small guitar and played the guitar on the trail as he walked along. The next fellow, you'll see him. Let's back up here. Sorry. His real name is Justin. I've forgotten his last name already. Tucker, Justin Tucker. His nickname was New Shoes because every week or so he'd show up with a new pair of shoes. He never liked the shoes he bought, and a week later he'd go to the next nearest town and go buy himself some new shoes. Justin and I got to be good trail friends. We started on the same day. I didn't know him then, and ended 3 days apart 6 months later. We even tried to coordinate summiting Mount Katahdin together, but he was on a time schedule because his parents were coming to meet him, and he was ahead of me by a few days at the time, and I was not able to catch up with him in a timely fashion. But you'll see Justin in lots of pictures here. I still stay in touch with him, and so now that you've had a little bit of education about trail names and our time is rapidly running out, what is the trail name for this young man? It's in the picture. His trail name is Cast Iron because he carried this silly cast iron skillet. Ridiculous. That's just what people do just to be fun. And so that was his trail name. Animals. Everybody always wants to know, did you see any bears? No, but there was a bear put on Facebook, a picture of one in my backyard here in Maryland while I was on the Appalachian Trail, not seeing any bears. So no bears. Ponies, yes, there's Grayson Highlands in Virginia has and put ponies in there to help chew up some of the invasive vegetation. Snakes, that's in the roof of one of the shelters, those lean-tos. That's why we don't have any mice in there. Deer, you've seen them. Porcupines, I saw 2 or 3. Beaver, I saw several in the lakes, and assorted little critters. That's called a newt, that orange lizard-looking thing. And if you ever watched the TV show Alone, this is a spruce grouse, and that's what those alone survivors are killing all the time because they don't have a very strong fleeing ethic. They're just too stupid to run away. Let's talk about river crossings. Rivers are really dangerous. Big rivers especially. If they're much deeper than your knee, then you'd best not go across. The river pushes surprisingly strongly against you. Underwater rocks are round and slippery. There's no sure footing. You see, I'm using my hiking sticks to good effect. And one wrong move and you can collapse over. And that's why you do not see my my backpacking belt strapped around my waist, and you don't see the chest strap across there either. See, there's my chest strap there, hanging down, and my belt is hanging down. Because if you fall over in the river, you don't want a 35-pound pack holding you under the water. If you fall in, you want to ditch that pack and save yourself. So, hiker hostels, I got to run through this because we're running out of time. Hiker hostels are a place where they'll come get you at a road crossing, take you in, and for $25 to $50 a night, they'll put you in a dry room, let you wash your clothes, and dry yourself out and sleep and in a safe environment. It's good to plan for those nights when you think it's going to be rainy that day or the next day. And just take a day off, a 0 day you've now learned, and stay in the hiker hostel. These are some of my favorites. This fellow here in the red cap, Bob Peebles, he's done so much trail maintenance, volunteer work that he has been put in the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame. There are only 56 people in that Hall of Fame. It's not like baseball or football. He's only one of 56 members of the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame. So trail angels are people that park their car on the side of the road and feed you snacks just because they want to be nice. Marlene's one of my favorites. I'm friends with hers nowadays. She does this every single day. She drives her car full of snacks and parks by the trail near her home. And any hikers that walk by, she feeds them snacks. There are others that do the same thing. These people fed me a ham and cheese sandwich cooked on a grill in the cold weather. Down here, you see New Shoes again. These people made homemade French fries that they cut on right there on the spot and cooked in peanut oil and handed us over hot French fries. So this is an important slide. This is me in 1974. And I had just gotten out of college, looked at the blue jeans. You don't wear blue jeans, that's cotton, they never dry out. Looked at the backpack style, that's my roll. That was uncomfortable. My 3/4 pack and my sleeping bag on the outside. I was young and skinny then. I'm still kind of skinny now. This is me back in 2022, some 50 years, 48 years or whatever later. Modern pants, nylon, everything ultralight nylon, poles, which I didn't have back in those old days. That's exactly the same spot on the trail. The sign didn't last 50 years, but fortunately I did. Let's move right along here. I don't know how that happened. There we go. Sorry about that. So now we're on to the pictures and we'll be done in a few minutes. That's my daughter. She came to visit me in the Smokies, hiked with me for 3 days. That's Charlie's Bunion, right where that previous slide picture was taken, right down behind the young Gary over here to the right. And so that's my daughter, Katie. It's always foggy at the Charlie's Bunion. So now we're just going to start move through a couple of pretty pictures before we're done. Bear with me, Jen and Paula. Sometimes the trail is nice and smooth. Sometimes there's ice on the trees because I started in February. It was cold. That's what the trail looked like. This is on top of a mountain. Along the way, I got a passerby to take my picture, sort of top of the world. Carver Gap on Roan Mountain down in Southern Virginia. Another snowy day on the trail on April 9th. Okay, you think it doesn't snow maybe after April? No, it does. There are those ponies, you saw that picture already. The 2 ponies came up to me and they're like, we want to pass. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I want to pass too. And I just stood there and stared them down and they finally decided just to walk on past me. So I was in Grayson Highlands. This is also in Grayson Highlands. If you look up on top of this mountain here, there's a person standing there. Isn't that cool? Anyway, guess who? New Shoes. And he has a following on YouTube. And this lady met him and us, this other lady and me, at this road crossing and gave us an order from Chipotle restaurant. She brought it up there mostly for Justin, but also since we were there, she brought some for us too. Pays to be popular. This is the most photographed spot on the whole trail, McAfee Knob in Virginia. Notice I'm not getting too close to that edge. That's not my thing. Sometimes the trail is smooth and flat, like I mentioned. Oh, here's some trail angel work. Some people drop some bottles of water and snacks and stuff on the side of the trail for hikers to find. This was a little up in Pennsylvania near Carlisle. A little farm had a self-serve place. You could buy yourself some chocolate milk and just put your dollar in the kitty. This is what we call Pennsylvania. No, wait a minute. It's Roxylvania. And now you know why we call it Roxylvania. Very difficult to walk on, sharp rocks, hard. You can't make any time. You see the trail marker up here, the Appalachian Trail. The typical shelter again, the guy in blue is a PhD psychiatrist, but he wanted to hike the trail. It's Ross Gap Shelter. I think that's in Virginia. Can't remember. Just some other pictures. More of Roxylvania on the right. Man, that's a trail. Okay, it's not flat. Some pretty flowers, rhododendron. And this is a toxic waste Superfund site that you walk through on the Appalachian Trail. You're going down there, and that's where I was picked up and taken to a hostel. Here's a picture. I think this is up in New England somewhere. Beautiful. That's the trail there on the left side of the picture. Okay. And here's another trail angel. She took me in and put me up for the night in her apartment in Massachusetts, Adams, Massachusetts. Here's a boardwalk through some swampland in New Jersey. New Jersey was quite pretty. There's me by myself, nobody around. I really did get in that lake. It takes a lot of time to take all your gear off, jump in the lake, swim around, dry off, put it all back on, and go again. So I didn't do it very often, but I wanted to show you that I did do it sometimes. That was on a timer on my cell phone. This is another lake up there, just beautiful places along the way. This is just a photograph. I don't know its name. I just thought that was one of my favorite artistic photos of the trip. Here's some friends. There's New Shoes again. He and I, you know, when you're hiking the same direction at the same speed, you sort of run into the same people all the time. Almost done, ladies. That's a little cabin there. I don't know what the deal was there, but that's up in New England. There's Justin again, New Shoes. There's Mount Katahdin, the destination of our long hike. And then you have to cross the Kennebec River. It takes a canoe, and this man takes you for free back and forth across the river. Just some artistic pictures. Again, have to move along. 45 minutes isn't a lot. And there's the love of my life and the biggest supporter and fan and helper for my entire trek. I couldn't really have done it without her. That's my wife, Bobby. And she would come to visit me along the trail on weekends. And then we'd stay in a hotel overnight. So hike your own hike. And this is what makes me happy, is having Bobby around. There's my completing picture. Mount Katahdin in August. I think it was the 24th or so. And then everybody takes this summit picture. And finally, one more slide. So what are my takeaways? Life is better with friends and family. As you all know, hiking the AT is a physical and challenge of major proportion. I think I already impressed you with that. Still, you know, it's more of a mental challenge than a physical one. And you don't have to be a thru hiker to enjoy the outdoors. Go out and hike 5 minutes, 5 miles, 3 miles on a weekend. Whatever you can do, it's good to just get out. You don't have to hike 2,000 miles to be proud of yourself. You do what you can do, and you be proud of that. Get outdoors whenever you can. And that's what I'm going to stop right there.
Great.
So, hello, everybody.
Gary, thank you so much. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but I have a couple. How were electronics managed? I see you mentioned your cell phone. Where do you charge, recharge?
So the hostels are a source of food. You know, they take you to the grocery store and you can buy your stuff there. They're also a place to recharge your devices. So the little UVC water purifying electronic device that I had would last about a week on one charge. I didn't need any recharging except for when we got to the rest stops. My cell phone, I listened to audiobooks for several hours a day, and I had to charge the phone every night. So you'd take along a little brick battery, a little 10,000 or 20,000 milliamp hour charging battery, and you would just plug your stuff into that. And you could use a small one for about 5 days of hiking, or if you went longer than 5 days, you could use a bigger one. I charged my remote earbuds. I used to have wired earbuds, but every time you'd stop to take your pack off, to take a snack, get your water replenished, or to take a snack break or lunch break, or just to rest, taking those wired earbuds off of your ears, and what do you do with them? They get torn up, tangled up. It's just annoyance. So I switched to wireless earbuds, and every 2 or 3 days, those have to be charged up. And
Okay.
so that's
Great.
how that works. Well,
We have a question. We have a question. What was your toughest stretch when you thought maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all?
Well, I got lonely up in Delaware Water Gap. I think that's actually in Pennsylvania. That's a major road crossing. It's a famous place. Everybody knows about it. I spent the night in this flea bag motel next to the road and next to the trail, and I had heard that it had been refurbished and was a clean, safe place to stay. But when I got there, it was nasty, and I had to make the guy at the desk give me a freshly laundered set of bed clothes because I didn't think the ones on the bed were changed. But it was a dreary night, and I was just starting to think to myself, this is not any fun. I'd already been like 1,300 miles or something like that. And I'm thinking, this is not fun. Just like I told Mark, this is as fun as it gets. Well, this is hell. It's no fun. I'm lonely. I'm depressed. And maybe I ought to take a couple of weeks off and go back to Maryland and spend a night or two with my lovely wife. Because, every day on the trail you pay. You don't think about it. It's yes, money. It costs thousands of dollars to through hike the Appalachian Trail, but it's more than money. It's mental sacrifice. It's like, what could I be doing if I were not doing this, right? I could be home. I could be sleeping with my wife. I could be my family. I could do stuff. I could have fun. So that's what you're spending that part of your life and not doing that, not spending it with your family, so you can be by yourself on this trail slogging through Delaware Water Gap. So I texted New Shoes because we had become friends, and I said, "Hey, Justin, I can't. I'm having a crisis here. I'm depressed. I'm lonely, and we've got a long way to go." And Justin wrote back to me and he says, "Hey, Gary, I feel the same way." And he's like 23 years old and he's African American and he hasn't seen but two African Americans on the trail in 3 months. And he's like, there's nobody here like me. So he's lonely too. So he says, "Gary, tell you what," he says, "I'm a couple of days ahead of you. I'll slow down. I'll take an extra 0 day. You just beat feet and scurry on up the trail. We'll meet up in this spot and we'll hike together for a couple of days." So that's what we did. That sort of encouraged me to break out of my slump, to get walking down the trail, go meet up with Justin, have a couple of nice days of chatting with him before he speed up and go beyond me. And that was my toughest time. And I owe it to Justin Tucker, same name, by the way, as the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens kicker, but not the same person. I owe it to Justin for helping keep me going. Justin and Bobby, my wife, of course.
That's wonderful. If anybody has any questions that you haven't put in the chat, feel free to unmute and ask Gary. Do you think you could have done this through if you had better equipment when you were 19?
It's hard to say. I wasn't motivated, the same way then. I looked at it as an interesting thing, but I don't think I was ready for it. You really have to be, you have to know yourself, and you have to know, you have to have that "I'm not going to quit" attitude. It's just something that's required. If you don't have that commitment, and that comes, I think, from a long life of experience. At the times when I'm thinking about quitting, I'm like, I can't. I can't quit. I told everybody I was going to do this. I told myself I was going to do this, and I've got to do it. That's just got to be part of who I am. And so that's pretty much all I can say. Is it's just I was younger then. I could have recovered from injuries more easily. I would have had fewer injuries. I would have had better balance because let's face it, I think we all are losing some of our balance as we move forward in life. And those trekking poles are something everyone uses, but I use them to good advantage because they help speed you along. But let me tell you guys, I thought of a story today. I've got to tell you, I've got a couple of minutes here still. I wanted to tell you that how many of you have ever been to the doctor's office for your annual physical and they give you this Medicare questionnaire, right? And they say, can you get your own, take care of your own medicine? Can you take care of yourself? Do you have someone to fall back on when you're depressed? Can you do this? Can you do that, right? Can you guys relate to that? Have you had that experience? Well, one of the questions on that Medicare test that they give you, this is before you see the doctor, I'm in the doctor's office getting my physical in late August after just completing the trail. And it says, have you ever fallen down during the day? Right? How many of you seen that? You remember that? You know, everybody wave at me if you remember seeing how many times have you fallen down? So I'm looking at the thing. It's like, if I answer this honestly, I'm going to tell them I fall down 2 or 3 times every day. Right? I've fallen down on my sorry butt backwards, forwards, any old way because I'm stumbling on these damn slick tree roots on glassy, smooth rocks in the rain, or I'm just clumsy and I got a 30-pound pack on my back. So
Put
I
that in your
couldn't put that on the
Right.
form because my doctor would freak out. Of course, he knew I was going to be on the trail, and my doctor very kindly gave me his personal cell phone number so that if I had any medical questions on the trail, I could just text him and not have to worry about where am I going to get this medical advice from.
We
Uh,
do have a question on that line. Somebody wants to know if you had any injuries or bad blisters. And then another question was, in your opinion, would it have been better to start in Georgia and Maine and gone down to Georgia?
Well, it might have been better to start in Maine because I'll take the last question first, obviously, because only 10% of through hikers start in Maine. And so that means you have a smaller bubble of people. You know,
Uh-huh.
there were days in March and April, early April, where most people start. I started before that, where there might be 100 people starting the trail hike all at the same time. So a bubble of 100 people is moving northbound up the trail, and you get to the shelter, and 100 people want to stay in a 16-person shelter. So yes, it's definitely better to go south, but you have the weather problem. If you start down south in warmer climate in the colder weather, then you're going, you get the advantage of being in Georgia in February or March, and not the disadvantage of being, say, in Maine in February or March. It's a big difference. And as you hike farther north, the weather gets warmer. But then when the weather starts getting really warm, you're up in the northern states where it's cooler. So it just makes more sense from a temperature standpoint to start down south. And that's the big advantage of doing a flip flop is you can start in the middle and miss the bubbles on both ends and hike up to the north end of the trail and get out done with Katahdin and not have to worry about it starting to snow in October when you were just about done. And Mount Katahdin, by the way, is in Baxter State Park, which is a state park, not a national park, and it closes October 15th. So if you get behind on hiking the trail, you've got to like take a break, go run up to Maine, hike in Baxter State Park, and get that done before they close it, and then come back to where you were. And injury wise, I didn't get any real serious blisters, but I had sort of a split toenail on my baby toe. And I know that's kind of a common thing, so a lot of you guys can relate to that. And I didn't want to do the surgery to fix it just before the trail. And for about 2/3 of the trip, it hurt every right foot plant on the trail. 1,000,000 steps. And I'm hiking 35,000 steps a day. And my right foot, every time it hit the ground, my baby toe hurt.
Well, then I guess nobody's going to mess with you. One other question people had, and we really appreciate this, is what is Justin doing now? He seems pretty exceptional, and maybe he'll speak to Chevy Chase at home in some years ahead.
Justin is actually kind of a little bit famous because he was doing these blog reports. I'm even in some of his videos
Huh.
from the trail. He would try to put out a video every couple of nights when he had the bandwidth, like at a hostel or something. But so he had an actual following, and that girl that I told you that brought food to us from Chipotle, she was one of his followers on YouTube, so she kept track of his daily progress and said, I want to meet you at such and such a gap, and I'll bring you some restaurant food. And that's how famous Justin was. But Justin's had a little bit of trouble finding himself and a new job. He used to do sets. He would help create sets for like shows in New York City. He had like 5 roommates up there, and so he was like a creative person on the stage sets and make and build and envision sets. But now I think he's working at this outdoor school down in North Carolina, and he helps take young people out for like day hikes and 2 or 3
He
nights.
certainly seems like the person to do it. I don't think we have any more questions. Anybody who just wanted to unmute and come in, and then in a few minutes, I'll just thank Gary. I hope some of you who are on will share this with your friends through the YouTube channel, the Chevy Chase at Home.
So Gary, one final question. Is Auburn going to make the finals?
Oh, absolutely. They're in the top
Good.
4. I don't know
Yeah.
when the next game is, but they did make it to the final 4.
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations. That was really fun listening to you.
Go Tigers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great presentation. I really enjoyed
Yes.
it. I have a
I'm
question
sorry
about
it had to go
ponies.
so fast. I'm from South. I'm not used to talking fast. And I know y'all don't want to hear it fast, but
I think I hear another
do what I had to
question.
do.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering about the ponies that you met. Were they friendly, or do you just avoid them? Were they totally wild?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The ponies that you
Oh,
met.
the ponies, yes, I actually was able, they tell you don't touch them because, you know, it's a liability thing.
Sure.
But they're used to seeing people. They're not used to having people touch them. But one of them was eating, and I went up and I actually was able to put my hand on it and stroke it a couple of times before he moved his butt away from me.
Great.
To tell me
Great.
he didn't really want me messing with him, but I did.
Yeah, great. Good for you. That was just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good rest of the day.
You
Thank
too.
you all again.
Bye.
Privilege.